Yum, yum.
Greg here from Pixel Fondue. So first thing you're going to notice is that the Modo interface is different. This is the 17.1 alpha, and they've updated the UI. Now, this is a work in progress. It's going to evolve, but this is the first iteration of it. Second, I'm wearing glasses. That's right. I'm 53, and I got some reading glasses. It's lore accurate. It's all good. It still works. But I'm here to talk about Primo. Primo is a new kit for Modo from Steve Hill. And I'm not lying when I say this is really just one of the first must-have kits because it's a complete redoing of all the primitives in Modo. All of these guys over here, plus a lot of new ones. And they are fantastic. So Modo primitives have all kinds of problems. And I could make a whole video shitting on Modo primitives. Now, Modo primitives were fine 20 years ago when Modo was made initially, but they haven't been touched really since then. And they're just woefully out of date for things like constraining and snapping. For instance, have you ever done this when you create a cylinder? Maybe you want to, I don't know, make a disc. Like, how do you get that to constrain? There is some secret method that you can click once and click again and hold control and point one of your feet this way and say a prayer to your favorite Norse god, and it may constrain, it may not, but mostly you do this, and then you come in here and you go, okay, like one, and you go one, or maybe you use mini props, and you go in here and say, oh, I need to center it. Okay, well, I can center it here. Well, why don't I just, press X to turn on snapping, because X is the hotkey for snapping. So I press X. What happened? Did snapping turn on? No, it didn't. It turned the axis to X because the X key for all the primitives was hard-coded into choosing your axis way back in Modo 101 before snapping even existed. There's a million problems, right? You got to go in here and you got to recenter it. It doesn't respect action centers, one of the prime Modo things. By the way, this sort of ghosting thing you're seeing is another alpha issue. It's view objects not updating right, but don't worry about that. Anyway, there's a million problems with these. Also, there's no arc tool. There's no helix tool. There's no 2D disk tool. There's all kinds of tools that are just quite frankly missing in a modeling program. And so it's really fairly frustrating. One of the other issues is, let me just go back to the cylinder real quick, is all of the Modo tools operate on a axis basis. So the cylinder, the capsule, the cone, they don't operate on a radius and height basis like every other program in existence. And I think the idea was to give some flexibility, but what it does is we can't, typically when you make a cylinder, you want to just adjust the radius and the height, and you have to screw around with these tool handles. Even with OmniHaul, it's you got to go in there and customize it each time because the radius depends on which axis it's facing. So they just suck. And that's what I'm saying. And so when I say Primo is a absolute must-have tool, it's because you can replace all of these things with Primo. Now, one of the things I'd like to do is get a short config out there to everybody where these tools replace these tools. I think we can have it where, you can have the little arrow there. If you press and hold, you can get to additional tools. I think we could probably update this panel where you get the Primo tools here, and then if you just click and hold, you can get the old Modo tool in case you're feeling nostalgic and want to F around with a cylinder for 5 minutes before you get one. But let's just go to Primo. So Primo tools work as direct tools, and they also work as mesh operations, every single one of them. Except Arc Tool. That's not a mesh op yet. And Steve will continue to add to these like he does to all his kits. So let's just look at the cylinder tool. Now, it also respects action centers. Now, he's got this handy little form here where you can just click the most common ones. You can also do, keyboard shortcuts. Works the same, right? But let's go to Origin Action Center. It's going to respect the action center. So I just click and I drag and I get the radius. And you can see it's 0, 0, 0. OmniHaul is all set up, so I can just keep dragging left, right for radius, up, down for height. I can also use my tool handles if I want. Again, radius, height, super great, right? Radius and height, super great for just dragging workflow. The thing that really sets Modo apart from other programs is dragging workflow. And we need to be able to drag our primitive tools. It's just the most natural way to work. Look, I can also right-click, drag, get my segments there. If I want to change it, just tab, 32, looks good, right click. I can also drag up and down for my segments like this, right? Just like that, or just hit tab, type it in, no problem. And he's got a bunch of other tools on here as well. I can go in here and hit tapered, and then now I've got another tool handle, and I can adjust the top here like that, right? That's a two-step process in Modo. And by the way, the deform tools in Modo are ancient as well. So the taper tool, not a lot of fun. Or you can set up a fall off. Anyway, this is just way better. And I can turn it into an ellipse. Again, get some more tool handles. Right now I can adjust these axes independently. Yeah, so it's just, and that's just the cylinder tool, right? So let's go to a mop real quick. Let's just make a new mesh operation. I'm going to hide this cylinder, and I'm going to pop out put a cylinder mop here, right? Same thing. I could just drag, and 17 actually is great. I don't have to activate channel hall anymore. I just drag, right? Just drag, just like a direct tool. Right click, get some segments. Right click here, up down, get some segments. It's really fantastic. And again, it's all procedural. Now with procedural tools, you get this extra little fancy thing down here. You've got a gradient, right? So I'm just going to pop it open in an editor, or you can make it bigger down here. But check it out. I can go in here and set some keys, and check it out. Like fall offs work with, are just built into the tools, right? That's built into the mop right here. Now imagine trying to make this shape with a mesh operation in Modo. You're gonna have to do like several different mesh operations to get this, right? You have to do the taper twist sort of tool. You're gonna have to, or maybe a fall off and a transform effector. It's just all right here, and it's procedural. You can plug in gradient nodes into the gradient and ripple sine waves through them, all that kind of stuff. Or I can just actually add a fall off over here. So this supports fall off. So I can go to the tool pipe, and I can do, we'll just do like a linear or a radial fall off like that. And you can see I've got, the radial fall off in here, right? So pretty sweet. And that's just all right there in the mop. So again, every one of these has a corresponding mop, and there's other things in here as well. So let's take a look. Oh, you can change the caps and some things like that. But you could pop it down to centered if you want, and whatever. So let's just I'm just going to kind of go through a number of the. I'm just going to go through all the tools in Direct, and I could show a couple more mops, but I want to show the action centers and the snapping, because this is, again, where it's really sort of a huge advantage over the current Modo. So let's just turn this guy back on. Let's delete this guy, and let's start over. Now let's just do the cube. So we've got a couple of different options here. Again, now, just like Modo, these over here, I can hold control, and you see you've got the little grids here, or the little green things. So I can just click and get a unit cube or a unit cylinder or unit cone or whatever, no problem. I can also hold shift and see the pluses. Same thing with Primo. Get a new one over here, get a new plane. Yes, we have a plane tool now. Get a torus, great, right? And then I can also hold Alt, and you'll see like there's this other little icon there. That basically just resets these tools back to default properties. So that's pretty sweet. So we can also just reset everything really easily. So we just delete these, and let's go to let's get a new, select a mesh here, go to our cube. I'm going to turn on snapping here, because this is where I think it's pretty great. We'll just do grid snapping. So it'll snap to the grid, right? And just like it uses action centers, it'll also use snapping properly. So I could snap to the grid here and continue to snap. And what you'll see is that sort of like magenta line there. That means we're proportional, right? And because it's Modo, I can just actually hold the X key down and temporarily toggle snapping off. Let go of the X key, snapping's back on. You'll see I've got that little thing there showing me is proportional, that little magenta line. Hold the X, it's off. I can also hold control and grow this proportionally, right? So there's all kinds of options in here in terms of making it, in terms of snapping, getting proportions, holding control to grow it proportionally. Again, it's really nice to be able to let me just go grab a couple of planes here. We'll just do one, and I'll move this over here, and then I'm just going to hold shift and control and make another one over here. And so if I'm using snapping, I can turn it to vertex snapping, and I can click here. Whoops, let's just turn our cube to a corner. We have a corner option now as well. So I can snap to this vertex. I can snap to this vertex and drag down and snap to that vertex. And now I'm going to height, just like the cylinders. And again, check out, if you want a cube, it'll snap. Boom, you can see that magenta line there. It just sort of snaps down to that magenta line. There's actually a property for that called snapping. So I can turn this up to like 60%. And now when I tug, it actually offers some resistance to my stylus or my mouse. And I actually have to pull quite a bit to get out of that snapping. It'll snap down really hard. So it has this great sort of internal proportional snapping mechanism. And of course, it's working with this snapping as well. And let me just delete all this stuff. Let's make another plane. And so I'm just going to hold Control. I'm going to go to Origin and just click and drag. You can see it's proportional. You can see it's at 0. And then I'm going to select it. Shift D. Let's subdivide this a couple of times like this. I'm going to hide the grid there. And let's take a look at some of these other action centers. So let's look at Element Action Center. And I'm going to... we'll just go back to our cylinder here, and this is going to respect Element Action Center. So whatever element, vertice, edge, or polygon that I'm hovering over, it's going to make that the center of the new cylinder. So put it over that polygon. It's in the center of that polygon. Hover over this vertice right here. By the way, I can just hold Shift, just like the regular tools, to like start a new one. So I can hold Shift, drag again over the vertice. It's just perfectly over that vertice. Hold Shift, start again. It's perfectly over the center of that edge because it's using Element Action Center, which is the center of the edge, center of the polygon, or right on top of the vertice. So there's Element Action Center, right? Let's take a look at Selection Action Center. So I can delete these. Let's say I've got a selection here, but I need to get, let's even make it sort of more weird like that. I need to have a cylinder in the center of this selection. Well, with Selection Action Center, it's just gonna it just works like it should. If I just start clicking, it doesn't matter where I start clicking. You can start clicking up here or down here, but it's going to put it in the center of that selection, right? And this is how Modo should work. This is the whole beautiful thing about Modo. It has action centers. The problem is, they didn't work with the primitives, and one of the things is I just think the primitives were done. Like I said, they're probably the first thing done in Modo. That was 20 years ago. So these are all updated. They're way better. Again, I can just turn on X while I'm making this. Unlike these tools, if I press X for snapping, it's going to change the axis. I can go to grid snapping, turn my grid on, and now I'm snapping to the grid. I can hold X to toggle it off. No snapping. Let go. Toggle back on. Snapping. Right. We got action centers, we got snapping. It's just fantastic. So let's take a look at a few other ones here. Let me just let me just delete this guy. All right, I'm just gonna go through these really quick one at a time just so I could show them off and maybe I'll index them. So cube, like I said, you can do corner or just center. And we'll just set it to corner. And the thing about this is, again, you can make it non-proportional or it'll snap like that little magenta line there to a proportional cube, and I'll do it in height as well. Snap, snap. There we go, right? Let's look at cylinder, same thing. Drag radius, drag height. Use the handles if you want. Let me turn off snapping there. Right click for segments. Segments will work for cube as well. Right click for segments for cube. Cylinder or cone, same thing. You can hold Control while you're dragging, by the way. It'll just drag out. Whoops, we just go to the cone. Hold Control, just drag out a proportional one like that. And then of course you can right click and get all those segments and everything as well. Torus is pretty awesome. So I'm dragging out my torus. I can use these tool handles to get the radius there or the sort of thickness of the cross section. And again, that's just mapped to up, down, left, right on left mouse button drag. Right mouse button, of course, is segments. But it's got some other kind of cool stuff in here. I can middle mouse up and down, and I can just get a segment like that. And I can middle mouse left, right, and just sort of swish it around. These are these two down here, arc angle and start angle. You can also turn on some other things. You can make it an ellipse if you want as well, so you can do whatever. So these are actually for movement. It's not just an axis. They're planar movement as well. Yep, let's do the plane again. Typically, you're just going to hold Control and just get a proportional plane. Right click for segments if you want them. But like I said, you could make it use the tool handles, make it non-proportional, snap it back. If you hold Control while holding a tool handle, it's going to keep proportional there, right? So there's the plane. I think you can also make plane. Yeah, any of these you can make subdivision or Catmull-Clark subdivision as well. So I can go say Catmull-Clark, and it's got a yeah. And so now this is should just be a Catmull-Clark service. Yeah, see, like that. Let's keep going. We've got this ring tool, so I'm just going to hold Control and drag it out. We can again make it 100% like this, or just you can just click on the press Alt to reset it like that, and right click. Whoops, let's make a new one here. Right click for again segments as usual, like so, like that. And then same thing with the proportionality. You can snap it or just hold Control to get proportions. And then, yeah, you can spin it around or whatever. And you can also do your different geometry types over here. You can also drag this out from a corner if you want. And I can, again, turn on snapping. We'll just do grid snapping and do it from a corner. So we can just snap like that, right? Looks good. Drag. Whatever. We got rings. We've got, we do have all these platonic solids as well. What's kind of cool is you can just drag this little purple handle here and change the platonic solid. So all your D&D dice can be done now in Modo with Primo. There we go. We got all the platonic solids. Pretty sweet, right? And you can also just pop up mini props here and pick the one you want. So whatever. Now we've got some curve tools. I'm just going to go to this curve mesh here where I've got some display properties set up to show them a little better. We finally have a helix tool. So again, radius and height. We've got handles for radius, and we've got handles for height, and we also have a handle for taper right here. Pretty sweet, right? And you can turn that off. You can turn the taper off. And you can also make it an ellipse like this. And you can change the geometry type. Curve, spline, polyline. See the polyline right there? I can right-click left and right to make less vertices or more vertices. And I can right-click up and down to get fewer loops, right? So it's super easy to make a helix now. Finally, in Modo, no more sweeping things around with an offset. It's whatever weird stuff you've done all these years just to get a helix in Modo. We've got a helix in Modo, and it's procedural as well as a mop helix. We've got our I think he calls this a loop, but it's essentially you can create basically n-gons, right? Like this. And by the way, this is all respecting the work plane. So if I just turn on the work, I think I showed this, but if I turn on the work plane, we'll just set it to always. So, it's blue and 17 and 1. So I can go down here, hold shift, drag out a new one, and it'll respect the work plane, right? So right click the number of sides, but we can also turn this into a curve like that. So now it's a curve, right? Or we can turn it into a spline, or we can, hold Control and just proportionally drag it. I can also turn this, turn these into polygons. So again, I can grab my loop here, and I can turn it to single polygon, and I can just have a polygon loop like this, right click, right? So it's a disk, right? You don't have to do a cylinder to make a disk now. We have a disk tool, right? We can also do the polygon fan like this, so it's, segmented like that. Yeah. Really cool. What else we got? We've got, the 3-point arc tool, which is my favorite of all the tools. So let's go to 3-point arc. And what's cool here is you can turn on snapping. We'll just do vertex snapping. And so you click once, and then you just drag to click your other point. So I want to snap this, say, here. Now I've got my diameter, and I just drag out my arc now. Now it's snapping, but like I said, it's Modo. I could just hold X, toggle it off, and snap this however I want. So I can make shapes like this now really easily, right? Pretty sweet. So the arc tool is fantastic, and this is what I just did here is leading towards more of a plasticity sort of workflow, and where you can use good 2D shapes to create 2D profiles that can be swept or extruded or thickened or frozen into polygons or whatever, and you can do that either mesh operations or directly. And I suspect there's going to be a lot more. In fact, this will have a full circle mode as well. So I can go to full circle mode and we'll just snap to grid maybe, and do like a full circle, and just with a different way of making it, right? And so you can align circles with snapping a little bit differently. So I can go in here and again, I can just snap to vertices. Like snap, drag, snap, and pull out a circle like that. So you can make a snowman. So these are really great tools. And let me just show a couple more mops maybe real quick. So this new mesh here, we'll just pop open this and do a cylinder mop like that. We want the Steve Hill cylinder mop, yeah, right here. And same thing, you're just dragging out radius, dragging up height, and get your segments in there. One of the nice things is I can add another one here. We'll just do like a delete mop, right? And Steve has, because he's incredibly thorough, all of the select by previous is all set up. So I can select my cylinder here and then just select the caps. And now you see on 17, it's got this nice bright green highlight for selections. Now there's no mistaking what's selected. So I got the caps selected, now they're deleted. Then I can just add like a thicken or something, and now I've got a tube, right? So pretty awesome. I can always go back down to my cylinder here, and you can see it with ghosting. I can change this or that, or I can go over here and change the select by previous. We'll just do like the sides, and now instead of having a tube, we've got these two end caps extruded. So yeah, pretty great. I don't know what else to say. So I'll just recap. With these tools, they operate similar to the Modo ones, where I can press shift and get new unit ones, or control and get new unit primitives in my existing mesh item, or with the added bonus of holding alt and resetting. This should maybe, I wonder, be like a standard Modo operation. Just hold alt to click on the tool to reset it, instead of control D, which is the keyboard shortcut for doing that. Which is kind of weird, because if you're in item mode, Control D duplicates the item, which is like most programs, right? Maybe Control D should be duplicated in component mode. Now we just do like Alt click to reset the tool. Just a thought. Anyway, so you can it respects action centers. It's much easier to snap the way the tool handles work. You've got a radius height paradigm instead of just this random axis paradigm, and the original Modo respects the work plane. I don't know if I've shown that yet, so let me just make a new cuboid here. Let me just hide everything else. And so you can just move this down, select that, set the work plane, or, there's a handy little button here. We can also just set the work plane here, or you can press Shift Home. That'll set the work plane. Or if you're like me, and you've set Seneca's, let me see if I'm doing this here. Yeah. If you have Seneca's little script, and there's a little thread on this on the Pixel Fondue Discord, I can just hover the mouse over any polygon and just press my hotkey, and it'll just set the work plane on there, which is awesome, by the way. You should definitely do that if you haven't already. But anyway, so it's going to respect the work plane now, right? So it's just going to respect the work plane. Press N to reset the work plane, and we've got work plane respecting here as well. Action centers, fall-offs. Fall-offs even work with the direct tools, weirdly. So I can get a cylinder, and then I can add like a linear fall-off, and I can set my fall-off here, and then start making my cylinder. And because it's, I've got this fall-off, it kind of looks like a cone, but you can use fall-offs with the direct tools, and you can use fall-offs with the mops. There's all kinds of extra channels, like for tapering and things like that. And all the cool stuff with all these tools, where you've got all this stuff as well. And Steve always adds to his kits. He always just updates these kits. He just adds new tools all the time. If you have Poly or Selma, the selection operations one, Poly is a mesh operations kit. You should buy all of Steve's kits, but he just adds to them all the time. He's just constantly adding to these. So I suspect we're going to get some maybe rounded corner square tools and some other 2D curve tools in here. as well as some new features on the primitives. So just in general, it's just a must-buy kit because it brings Modo's primitive creation tools and some of the curve creation tools up to modern standards, which is just sorely needed because this is, after all, first and foremost, a modeling program. And I can't tell you how happy I am that he's done this. I've been trying to convince Foundry devs to do something like this, but they're trying to make Modo faster and more efficient and fix bugs and do all this stuff. And it's so nice to have a third-party dev come in and just make a massive update to the program like this. So I'm imploring everybody to buy this kit. Buy the kit. I'll put the Gumroad link in the description. Support Steve. We put a huge amount of effort into this. And it's totally worth it. You're going to use the 3-point arc tool. You're going to use the Helix tool. You're going to use all these new creation tools. And like I said, we'll have the community maybe make a config for these. We'll put it up on the content portion of the Pixel Fondue Discord, where we can have the new, shiny new, enhanced, way better Primo primitives here on this main tab. And then maybe if you want to get to one of these old ones because you want to torture yourself or whatever, we'll just have it so you can just like press and then get to the old one if you want to. So anyway, that's the video, and see you on the Discord.
Yum, yum.